Thank you all very much for coming out tonight. It is encouraging to see a full room here this evening for our discussion. So welcome to the Forward Franklin Mayoral and Town Council Candidate Forum. I'd like to introduce Lauren Cuppers-Hickman and Susanna Cuppers. They are the co-chairs of Forward Franklin. The mission of Forward Franklin is to promote social justice and progressive values through education, advocacy, and political action. My name is John DeVille, and along with my friend and longtime mentor and former town council member Nancy Scott, we will be moderating tonight's discussion. The candidates that you see before you, it's not worth it. The candidates that you see before you were given a list of 8 questions several days ago, so there's no gotcha moments here. We're going to try to get to as many of those questions as possible. The time limits for the questions work this way. There's 2 minutes for any initial response, and after each candidate has had a chance to provide an initial response, and they don't have to use the whole 2 minutes, then there'll be an opportunity for a 90-second follow-up response. All candidates will be allotted equal time to speak. Lauren will be holding up a yellow card when there's 30 seconds left, and then a red card when time has expired. We're going in alphabetical order. That's the rhyme and reason behind the seating arrangement. When we do the second question, whoever answered first will go last, and we will continue to do it in that fashion.
Do they have to move?
They won't have to move. You and I will just have to keep it straight. When the candidate is going to be answering a question, we'd like for the candidate to please go to the podium where there's a microphone, and that way they can directly address the audience in an amplified fashion, and they'll have Lauren right in front of them holding up the cards. Are there any questions from the candidates before we begin?
Which cards are those?
I'm sorry?
Which cards are those?
Right there?
So, write this down. And
Yeah, yellow means you got 30 seconds, and red means we'd like for you to stop talking.
I'll try.
Okay. All right. We do have water pistols and tasers. So. All right. So I'm going to ask the first question, and we'll start with Mr. Guffey, and then we'll go all around the circle here. So, Mr. Guffey, if you'd like to go to the podium. And again, all of you will have a chance to answer the same question. As a citizen of Franklin, what have you done to benefit the town and community? What experience do you have in town function and issues?
So currently I'm the vice mayor of the town of Franklin. I've been on the board for 4 years now. I'll start back at the beginning of my career and talk a little bit about the reasoning why I'm in public service. Public service is not the career I meant to get into, but I was lucky enough to grow up around my parents, grandparents, and even great-grandparents. And a couple of things that they instilled in me was a deep love for this place. And the other thing that they instilled in me was how good this place had been to us. And so the reason I got into public service was as a way to give back to the place that's been so good to us for generations. That's where my heart comes from. I watched my granddaddy, who was a Southern Baptist preacher, do public service in his way, and learned a lot about what it means to sacrifice your time with family, to sacrifice sometimes making more money, to give back to other people. And it's been a really rewarding career. I'm not going to go through my entire resume. You can find it online if you'd like to, or I'll tell you about it after the meeting. But when I first started, my first public project was with the Little Tennessee River Greenway, a project that at the time a lot of people said was a waste of money. And now you look at it, it was a real investment in our community. That opportunity came up just sort of by accident, and then I got into public service Now for 26 years, I've been in public service. Never thought I'd get into politics. My family's not a political kind of family, but it's been very rewarding, and I appreciate the opportunity to give back. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holland, same question. Again, as a citizen, what have you done to benefit the town and community? What experience do you have in town function and issues?
First off, I'd like to say this is very new for me, to be in front of all of you talking about these issues. I'm a business owner here in Macon County, and I employ employees, that they depend on their paycheck every Friday. And with this paycheck, they were able to go around and they promote the local economy. And this keeps local money with the locals. And we need to continue that and continue to shop local. And, with my business also, I'm very fortunate that we're able to have different parts stores, different fuel stops, different tire shops, that we can go and keep this money local. And as my service goes, I've served on the TDA for the last 6 years, and it's been a great thing. It's taught me a lot about what local politics is about. And we go from advertising to supporting events on a yearly basis. There's events that came to us every year, and we were there for them, and we supported them, and this was great for our kids, for our families, to get out and be a part of the community. A couple years ago, I benefited from a project. I didn't benefit like that, but it was beneficial for me to be on a sidewalk beautification project with federal, state, and town tax dollars. And this has showed me, what it takes to build sidewalks, to be ADA compliant, to, benefit more than one person. And, as we're looking around in the town of Franklin, our biggest need is our infrastructure. And with my construction management experience, I feel like I would be the best to lead us with
Just as a note, if you've got another 10 seconds, that's fine. No fingers are going to be cut off. And secondly, you'll have another 90 seconds when we do the second pass, so you'll have time to extend those remarks. Mr. Bailey, what have you done to benefit the town and community? What experience do you have in town function and issues?
Hey guys, thanks for being here. Pardon my nerves, public speaking and all that. So, truth be told, I'm totally new on the political scene. This is my first time, so go easy on me. But I live and work here in Franklin. Corey can vouch for that. I'm right up at Outdoor 76. I have worked in the service industry for a long time. So in doing that, providing exemplary customer service is the goal. That's something I like to think I'm okay at, but at the end of the day, my goal has been somebody walks in and they have a need. How do I meet that need? That is where most of my experience lies, and that is what I am hoping to bring into this field. We'll see how that goes. So, thank you.
Mr. Berry.
Much like Calvin, this is my first venture into politics also. As a local and a native of Franklin, I live in the city limits, and I have a rental house collection that we rent out. There's 4 of them. I am also a trustee for Woodlawn Cemetery. Since I've been a trustee, we have made huge strides in offering consistent maintenance and improvements. My college background in accounting allows me to provide detailed record keeping for the cemetery. I'm also proud of the community that I live in. I do litter patrol on a weekly basis. I mow around the fire hydrants, keep those clear. I also keep the drains and culverts free flowing. I maintain the intersection on both sides of Phillips Street to make maneuvering in and out of that intersection easier because it is a very dangerous intersection. As far as town functions and issues that I have experience with, I have very few. But my college background, I graduated in May of '95 with 3 degrees at one time in accounting, business administration, and administrative office technology. And I feel that my education will lend its benefits to helping the town of Franklin move forward. Thank you.
Mr. Cook.
My name's Tim Cook. In 1985 to 1990, I worked as a Megan Search and Rescue Squad. In 1989, I started as at Highlands Country Clubs and security. In 1992, I worked as a police department in Highlands. Through 2007, I started in Lunenburg Correctional Center. I have found lost people, I've protected homes and property, enforced laws, and have kept the peace in a prison environment and housing unit.
Mr. Wiggin.
My name's Travis Higdon, and I am new to the political scene. This is the first time I've ever run for anything. I have no experience with town functions. This is all new to me. I've been a soccer coach. I've been a Little League baseball coach. That's drawing a blank here. Sorry if I get a little nervous. When I was in school, I was involved in things with Jerry Lewis Telethon and a lot of fundraisers. So, anyway, new to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thatcher.
My name is Paul Thatcher. I've only been in the area, well, this go around 4 years. I lived here a year and years ago as well. I've served in, one of the local churches as a, youth teacher, and many years ago, and now locally as a financial clerk. I serve in the community when and how time allows. About 10 years ago, my mom retired to this area about 25 years ago, and so I've been coming for holidays for the last 25 years. And about 10 years ago, in my mom's words, I got ambushed and talked into buying the Franklin Terrace bed and breakfast. And with my mom's help, mostly her work, at least for the first 6 years, that historic property has been brought back to life and revitalized, and now treats guests both local and from around the world. I've also occasionally gone to some of the county commissioner meetings and eggs and issues and things like that, and I've brought up things to the county commissioners about some of the projects they're doing, and been told that this is a wonderful idea and that we need more things like that in the area, only to find out that at the next meeting they completely ignored everything I said. And so I want to have a larger impact, and I want to be in a position where people actually listen to the common sense I hope to bring forth. And I can't ask you if you have any questions, so I'll take the time to sit down.
Ms. Lane.
Yes, hello, and thank you all for coming and for Forward Franklin for sponsoring this. I am from Franklin, but for many years I wasn't able to live here, and I'm so glad to be back home full time. I am currently a town council member, and I've had that experience for about 4 years now, and so I'm running again to ask for your vote for another 4 years. I have served on the Mainspring Conservation Trust Board of Directors for 9 years. 4 of those years I was an officer. And way back, I served with the Cowee Pottery School on their board of directors. So I haven't done as much as I'd like to do in our town, but I have a great bit of experience with town and town issues and policies. The way that I approach this is by being very serious about the issues that come forward. I do my homework, I read, I research, I speak with experts, I listen to opinions. And I think that that experience will benefit us and benefit you in the coming years. There is a huge, well, I think of it as huge, a huge learning curve with serving on the town council. And I think because I've had this experience that experience will benefit you in the long run. I've learned from everything from how we get our revenue to budgeting, to the importance of zoning, to the importance of keeping our ordinances, being sure that they're strong and that we follow our ordinances. I've learned about our fire department, our excellent fire department, the police, and all of our many workers on the town, on the streets and sidewalks and that kind of thing. So I'm asking for your support because I already have some experience and you've already invested in me, and I hope you'll do that again.
Thank you very much. Okay, now the candidates have got an opportunity if they would like to extend their remarks.
I think it's great that we have some new faces and some new blood running for town council this time. It's a good place to start, but I think when you're talking about the mayor and the leadership of our town, that it's important to have someone who has experience. The 26 years of experience that I have, I'll lean on that as much as I can. You know, you'll hear some people say, I'm not a politician. Well, I'm going to lean into it and own that word, because everything that you see about Franklin, everything that you love came from public servants, building relationships, making compromise, and making hard decisions. That's what politics are. If you're out asking people for votes, you're a politician. If you're out making things happen in your community by building relationships, you're a politician. It kind of reminds me of, you know, if you went to the doctor and the surgeon came out and said, I'm going to do surgery on you, but I'm not a doctor. That's what it reminds me of. So I'll proudly lean into my experience, and I plan to use it to lead this town forward.
Thank you.
I would like to add that, you know, even though I do not have any political experience, I do have experience with water and sewer, which the town runs just like a business. So you have customers that expect their water and sewer to be working. You know, when it snows, they expect you to be out with salt trucks and snow plows plowing your roads. They expect the maintenance crew to be out weed eating. They expect the grass to be mowed, and that's everything that I've done for the last 10 years for the DOT. We've constantly worked snowstorms. We've constantly graded gravel roads. We've constantly mowed and did beautification. It fits every day, and what I do is to lead this place, and I want to thank you for that.
Someone a lot wiser than me a long time ago said something like, civilization is great when old men plant trees they'll never sit in the shade under. I think, I don't just speak for myself, but everyone up here when I say I love Franklin and I love what we're about. I know, I presume because you're here, that you all care about it in a very similar way. I want to see this place not just surviving or getting by, but thriving. To see it moving towards a future that is every day brighter, with a stronger community and people who are passionate about living here and being part of this place and this people. That's why I'm here tonight. I think that's why all these folks are here tonight. And thank you guys for being here for the same reason.
Thank you. Mr. Berry?
I would like to talk a little bit more about the rental houses that we have. I realized since 1996, when I purchased my first rental, there is a huge need in Franklin for affordable housing. Since I acquired my first house, I want to provide a stable house for my renters to live in. And I made the conscientious decision to never change their rent. They'll pay the same rent from the day they move in until they move out. And I think that will give them the opportunity to realize that they do have a stable place to live. And I just think that Franklin needs more housing options. Thank you.
Well, I worked in law enforcement, so I like to work with our law enforcement to try to fix the laws that we've got so they will enforce them. The speeding on Main Street, the drugs, stuff like that. I like to work with them, try to get, see what their pay is. They don't get paid enough, but I would like to try to find out to make it to where we pay them like we pay Highlands or Silva or anything like that. So.
I've lived in the same house my whole entire life over here on Durrell Street behind the old hospital for 51 years. And I see the speeding going through town. We need to address that. The biggest address we need to address is why are we not keeping our firefighters and our police department? Why are they leaving to go to the next county, to the next town for money? I myself, I've had to work out of town for 33 years. There's just not many jobs here. I would love to see something come into town that paid a good living wage. I mean, our firefighters and our police department are right on the poverty line. That's their wages. I couldn't imagine putting on a bulletproof vest for that pay. They need to be paid more. So, if elected, I would like first thing to look at their budget and look at their pay scale, and we're going to go from there. See what we can do for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thatcher.
Some of the speakers have spoken about their wonderful experience, and I suppose I should talk a little bit more about mine to give you an idea of what your options you have with me. I have a bachelor's in electrical and computer engineering, and I work as a software developer. I have a juris doctorate and worked at the patent office of the federal government for over 8 years. I worked as a patent attorney. I know how to read the law. I know how to understand the law. I'm aware of many of the unintended consequences that can sometimes crop up with new policies and new laws. There's an old adage that the way to hell is paved with good intentions. And sometimes with the best intentions, we make policies and rules which end up exacerbating many problems. And I hope to use my experience and knowledge and the ability I've developed over the years in research to help, avoid certain pitfalls and to, help facilitate the dreams and visions that either council members and community may have to make Franklin the best place on earth. Thank you.
As I said earlier, I am from Franklin, and I have always been proud of our community and proud of the people who serve. I believe that public service is the highest form of service, that there's not much that you can do that's a higher form of service than public service. My grandfather was the mayor of our town for many years, and he set the pace for me to think about being involved in town government. I wanted to mention that we talked a little bit about wages, and we have done studies very recently to look at our police and fire department, the pay scales, and we'll continue to do that. I mean, we want to maintain them. There's nothing good about having a police officer or a fire person move to another part of the state or move somewhere else for more money. So I hope that the council, whoever's on it, will continue to look at that. It's important, and we need to have living wages. And thank you to Jeff for having housing that people can depend on and that keeps the rent steady for the time they're there.
Okay, so we're going to Mr. Holland. We'll go to Mr. Holland to start this one.
Okay, this question is, what is the biggest challenge facing Franklin, and how, as a council member, would you address it?
So I feel like the biggest challenge is facing Franklin is small business development. And, Franklin has a unique opportunity right now with hospital property to bring in business. We have nothing here that keeps our younger generation here to work. And this is an opportunity that we have to expand our downtown and make it bigger and bring in business, bring in restaurants, maybe bring in a conference center or a small hotel. We need to start looking for things that will bring people here for the weekend. We need to have people coming in on the weekends and spending their money on Main Street, in our restaurants, in our local shops, that are paying tax and bringing it back to the town, bringing the money back to the town. That way that we can further our advancement in our infrastructure. Thank you.
So, I'm not sure what the rest of y'all intend to say, but my guess is a lot of them will kind of go part and parcel. The way that I see it, I think right now Franklin's biggest problem is a lack of direction. I think that's something that I have seen just from living and working here in town is I see that Franklin is growing, but is it growing with purpose and intention? Have we been asking ourselves as a community, like, what we want this place to be like 30 or 50 years from now? The kind of community that we want to see here 30 or 50 years from now. It's true, folks in my age demographic are a bit of an anomaly in this town. The reason that I'm here is like a barnacle. I've decided to stick here and stay, by golly, one way or the other. So I would like to see us have a vision moving forward. There's a lot of beautiful towns in Western North Carolina. I think Waynesville is a great example. I was down on Main Street, Waynesville. They have more trees on Main Street than we do. And I kind of miss some of the trees that we took down recently. And I know that there's reasons that those trees came down, but it takes a long time to grow a perfectly good tree, you know? So that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see us with a direction moving forward. And then maybe that will help bind together a lot of the other problems that we're facing. Thank you.
One of the biggest problems that I feel Franklin is facing is infrastructure. And within the infrastructure, you need to look at your freshwater, your wastewater, your police force, and your fire department. Right now, Franklin is able to process approximately 1.2 million gallons of fresh water daily, with a maximum of up to 2 million gallons daily. We are in the freshwater department is in the process of doing the clear well upgrade. When it is completed, they will be able to process up to 4 million gallons daily. With that, taking that into consideration, the wastewater plant is equally as important. It's going to have to keep up with the demands of the need for the fresh water. Right now, the wastewater treatment plant is processing about 750,000 gallons of waste a day, with a maximum of 1.65 million gallons for it to fall under the state guidelines for treating it. The street repair must be able to take the wear and tear of the projected growth of Franklin, as well as the potholes being taken care of and the sidewalks being passable by foot. When I look at the police protection, with the projected growth of Franklin, they're going to need adequate funding for supplies, equipment, vehicles, and I also agree with some of the rest of the potential council members that their wages need to be more competitive to keep us from losing them to another area. But as I look at Chief Foreman in the back, I feel the same way about his department. He needs to be adequately staffed, have the proper amount of equipment, supplies, and the vehicles needed for the current growth that is happening and the projected growth that is coming in the very near future. Thank you.
I think we need to find more jobs for our young people here. We have plenty of fast food joints, but very little career-type jobs. One of the main troubles we have here in town is drugs. People driving around with no tags on vehicles, no insurance. We need, and speeding. I would like to work with law enforcement officers and the chief and try to obtain better pay and better backing for our officers. Thank you.
The question was, what is the biggest challenges facing Franklin, how I plan to solve it? Finding the money to fund these projects. That's going to be tough. But we can do it. We're just going to have to keep it off the backs of the taxpayers. New police officers, staffing, that's going to cost. But we'll figure out how to do it. We had a tax that didn't pass a few years back. It was going to help. I think it was like a 1 cent tax on sale, three-quarter, and it failed. Taxes went up. So I like to see that come back, catch the tourists, let them pay for it. When we go out of town, we're paying for it. You go to Gatlinburg, you're buying them stuff for their schools, stuff for their police department. You go to Atlanta, you're paying for their stuff. Well, we pay for it here. Thank you.
I'd like to echo what many of the other candidates have said. Most of the youth, after high school leave the area. And there are very few jobs that can sustain people with careers here in the long term. And even some of our wonderful companies, like Drake Software, I've heard they've started hiring a lot of remote employees and are not, necessarily requiring new employees to come here. And one thing I would like to do is talk to the leaders of many of the larger companies here and see what we can do to, help people have better jobs here. Now, part of that might be, after talking with them and seeing what they need, talking to the schools and see if, either additional classes or after-school programs can be set up to help make sure that the youth here have these skills necessary to fuel wonderful jobs here. I want to make the soil of Franklin fertile for investment by other companies. But you have to be careful how you do these things. If you look at some of the decisions the federal government have done over the last 10 or 20 years, there's a difference between when you try to guide things too much, you often throw tons of money at things that go nowhere, such as the California Rail that they spent $7 billion on it, and they might have built a mile, but it doesn't sound like it. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars on Cylinder for electric batteries, and I think it actually got up to $2 billion, and the company went bankrupt afterwards. It didn't make any batteries. So there's hopefully I can talk about this more later.
We have another 90 seconds of this bit. Ms. Lane.
I think the biggest challenge that we have in town is investment. Bringing money into the community from outside, as well as the people that live here and are already investing, helping them and encouraging them to keep investing in our local economy, to have them keep investing in creating more and more jobs, and working with them to find out, what is it that we could do as a town that would help them continue to invest and to sustain their investment. Almost all of Main Street is full right now, and those are local people investing and making jobs. So I think investment's the major issue. Then we have, as we mentioned earlier, the Angel Hospital space that's going to be potentially available very soon. And what we'll need to do with that is to to find investors probably from outside. But we want investors that respect our values, respect our community, respect our beautiful mountain place, and that will help us keep our history and culture. Invest and find investors that will match what we already have instead of trying to change us too drastically and too quickly. I also think that we need to rely on expertise that will help us look at what we need and what kinds of jobs that we can continue to develop, and we can bring into Franklin. Small business is the lifeline of small communities. It's not going to be a big old factory coming in here, and that's probably not what we'd want anyway. But to help keep our investments in the local community, help us grow and help us develop. And that's what I think is the biggest challenge, is finding investors that match our values and match the community.
I'll piggyback a little bit on what Ms. Lane said in terms of looking for investment in the community and sort of the tension between looking for that investment and make sure those folks share our mountain values. I think it speaks to a bigger, more overreaching issue, which I think is the biggest issue, and that is when I look around the room tonight, I can tell you the makeup of this room in terms of where people were born and raised is different than it was a couple of decades ago. This place has grown, it's going to continue to grow, and you know why it's going to continue to grow, because it's a place that we love, the natural beauty, the small town atmosphere, and that's that tension. So I would say the biggest issue is, how do you balance the growth that we know that's going to come, and at the same time maintain our Franklin values. That growth, I think what you've heard tonight in terms of issues with crime, affordable housing, all of those other issues are a symptom of the growth that we're experiencing. And I'm proud that we're working on addressing some of those. I'm glad we've got 90 more seconds because I want to talk about each of those issues. But starting with law enforcement and our fire department, we've been in conversations already about what the needs are in terms of salary increases potentially, what the needs are in terms of where people are ranked in our step process, where they are in the system as employees based on their experience. And so you can look for some work on that fairly quickly because, of course, fire and police protection are fundamental jobs of what we do in town council.
Thank you. Mr. Lieutenant, have another 90 seconds. Mr. Holland.
As everybody says, Franklin has grown. I mean, it used to be a time when you could go to the grocery store to get one item, and it would take an hour to get through that line, and that's gone. We used to go to restaurants, know everybody in the restaurants, know our waitresses, know our waiters, know our bartenders, and that's gone. And what we've got to do with this growth is we've got to meet it. And when we meet it, hopefully we can do that by keeping the beauty of Franklin and keeping our mountain heritage with it. And we can also, hopefully create jobs, keep young people here, make sure they stay here for a generation and have the small town feel and be able to raise kids, being a new, with a young family with a 4- and 2-year-old, it's nice being in Franklin, nice being able to walk down the street, nice knowing that we're not a little Asheville, but we got to be careful and with all of that. And thank you.
Well, not to just lay on the quotes tonight, but there's another one that I really love and I think about quite often. Everyone wants to save the world. Nobody wants to do the dishes. So that's kind of, well, not to be too tongue-in-cheek, but that's how I ended up here tonight. I think moving forward and facing all of these issues, ultimately, that's kind of what's on the line here. It's time to buckle in and do the dishes. All of us are passionate about doing that. Hopefully you guys can tell. I know that you are too. Each of us has to sit and look around right where we're at and ask ourselves, how can we make this place a better place? So moving forward, man, I want to hear more from y'all. And I hope that I can be accessible to do just that. Yeah, win or lose, I'm here, I'll be in Franklin, I love this place, but let's do this together, right?
As I look out into the audience, I see a lot of familiar faces, but a lot of us have a vested interest in Franklin. We want to keep seeing Franklin moving forward and growing, but moving forward and growing in a manner that's going to be sustainable. We got to make sure that we can provide the clean water to drink. We got to make sure that there's a wastewater treatment plant to dispose of the waste. We need to make sure that the police and the fire department are adequately staffed for the growth. And without all this, Franklin would not be heading in the right direction if we don't have strong infrastructure. And after looking over the budget and seeing all the preparations that are being made into the future, different departments looking forward on what they need and how it's being looked at and funds set aside on a yearly basis, I think that's what Franklin's got to continue to do in order to move forward in a sustainable manner.
Mr. Cook?
I was going to talk to the chief. I asked to talk to him today, but I never got to. But I was wanting to ask him a question. Do we have anything in the town here where we give officer appreciation? We do. Also, do we do stuff like for like Christmases, for families and stuff like that? That's great. That's all I was wanting to ask.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper?
Infrastructure is a big thing we need to look at. Right below my house, there's a 80-unit condo going in, and we need to make sure their sewer lines, our water lines are all up to date. My house got flooded out twice in my life. One time in 1989, one time 2001, I believe, by the city sewer. City sewer got clogged up, backed up, come through my toilet, lost everything I had. We got that took care of, but they made sure it never was going to happen again. They redid the sewer line on my street. I've talked to several people in town, they're having issues with their sewer and their water. Barry Cove, I think, is one of them. We need to address these issues and get it taken care of. I hate to ever see anybody go through what I went through. Thank you.
We're on the second half of the challenges question, right? You've heard a lot of great ideas here. One important part when you have so many different ideas is prioritizing and juggling. And I'm very good at prioritizing and juggling. And sometimes you can arrange your tasks so one helps the other, helps the other, helps the other. And I'm very good at that as well. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Lane?
Just to reiterate, I do think that investment is the biggest challenge that we have. Investment in housing that our police, our fire department people, our school teachers can live in, and I think we need to work hard to attract that kind of investment. Investment in our infrastructure. To be able to do any of these things, we have to have investment, and so as we bring resources in, I think that the council, a role of the town council is to figure out with the resources that we have, what those priorities are, and work as hard as we can to attract more resources into the town. Our town staff does a great job in keeping their eyes open for what kinds of grants are out there, what kinds of opportunities are out there, and doing the work necessary to bring things into the town. And I think that they'll continue to do that because they're just excellent. So, infrastructure and attracting investment.
That's a long list of things. I just wanted to say to Mr. Holland that if you get elected, those 1-hour grocery store trips are going to come back because you can't go through the grocery store as a member of town council without getting stopped in almost every aisle. I think everything that we've heard those are valid issues. A lot of those we currently have initiatives to work on. We have water and sewer infrastructure plan that we're working through. A lot of other infrastructure projects through our bike ped plan, through our comprehensive plan. I would reiterate what Ms. Lane said in terms of our staff and what a wonderful job they do in carrying those plans forward. Specifically, though, a couple of really big, I would say, projects that will have generational change in Franklin are the hospital property and the redesign of Main Street. And we got off of a long call this morning, and I'm going to violate my time. I'm sorry. We got off of a call this morning with the Development Finance Institute about the hospital property. They're doing the study over here. Learned a lot of news about what the economic viability looks like. So you hear feasibility study and you kind of glaze over, but in a situation like this where we're looking to make a significant investment in a property that could change our downtown, we want to know down to the dollar exactly what the return's going to be, exactly what kind of development we need to look at. And so that's a big, just an example of one of the big opportunities. And I'll reiterate again, I think that for those kinds of game-changing opportunities, you need
someone with some experience. Thanks.
Before we go on to the next question, my co-moderator has suggested we need a 7th inning stretch. So if you want to stand up and stretch your legs for a minute, we'll do that.
A few minutes later.
Okay, well, Mr. Bailey, you're going to have this one first. This is a three-parter. How do you see your role as a town council member in terms of environmental issues and protection of our natural resources, such as the Little Tennessee River, that are critical to our health and our economy? Please explain your positions on the floodplain ordinance, both current as well as the recently proposed floodplain ordinance, which had relaxed restrictions. And finally, as a town council member or mayor, how would you balance the rights of individual property owners versus the collective good of the citizens of Franklin?
Okay. So I'm a strong believer in the idea of stewardship. Like, the land is here, we're dependent on it. If we take care of it, it will take care of us. I think pretty much all of us, the water that we drink, where does it come from? There's a river right over there. And that's the water of home, that's the water that we need, that our lives are dependent on. So as a town council member, I think my priority is to preserve the nature around us, to preserve us for the long term here. So as far as the floodplain ordinance is concerned, water is the most powerful force on the planet. It weighs 8.3 pounds per gallon. Arguably, it comes even before lightning. I think it's a darn fool thing to just build stuff in a place that you know every now and then is full of water. So I understand that there are private property owners who want to make the most of what they've been blessed with, and we should all be doing that. But in regards to the river, I would definitely like to see us be as conservative with that natural place as possible. The riparian area, the trees, the flora, those are all very dependent on protection. The more we go in there and root around and mess things up, the more we're going to tend to throw the natural world in this part of our country out of balance. And that's something that I think we need to work hard to preserve. Thank you.
Mr. Barry?
I think, as we all know, water is a necessity of life, and we need to do all we can to protect their waterways. I am in agreement with Kelton that we need to protect and preserve those areas, because changing the lay of the land is going to change how the waterways flow. Silt is the #1 pollutant in our waterways in this area, and if silt gets in the water, it's going to fill in the crevices, cover the rocks, create reproduction issues for the critters that live in the bottom of the river, which eventually will become airborne and be a food source for different birds and different wildlife. So I just feel like that the floodplain does need to stay intact and be preserved. I think the residents are due a forum as such to learn how changing the floodplain can affect their property and how it can affect them. I think the use of mitigation programs to balance property owners and the collective good of the citizens, whether it be through a voluntary buyout or a relocation assistance, are options that should be available to all the residents of Franklin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cook?
I think the floodplain ordinance should be left alone. People that own property in town have to pay both town and county taxes. Or we tell them what they can or cannot do on their own property. So, especially if they obtained that property, it was sold as unrestricted property. So.
How lucky we are to have that river running right through the middle of our town. It needs to be preserved in every way, form, and fashion. The Greenway is absolutely beautiful down there. You can walk on it, enjoy it, watch the otters. I've spent many hours down there fishing in that river. Didn't ever catch much, but I had a good time. The floodplain ordinance needs to be left alone, like my colleagues here said. It's in place to protect people and their belongings. I've lived here long enough to see that river all the way up to the Indian Mound. It's caused a lot of damage in the past, and I'd hate to see anybody, build a nice campground or something too close to the river and then lose it all, and maybe somebody lose their life. So we need to really leave it alone for now.
Thank you very much.
Go.
That's come before too.
Go.
I really like the things that Mr. Cook and Mr. Higgins said about actually being on that land and using it, and the importance of property owners' rights. I mean, people bought land, many with intentions of doing things with them, and if we change the laws too much about what they can do with it, that's difficult. But fill and floodplains and water flows, they can be complicated issues. If there's a particular study that said in a particular area it's more dangerous and we had to go to the more restrictive route of the county, that might be something we'd have to consider maybe as a part of zoning. But these are complicated issues, and when you're trying to balance people's rights and communities' rights, it has to be a very pressing community right to overload an individual rights. And so in very few areas would I want to restrict individual property owner rights, and only when those events and handling the property there can have dramatic effects elsewhere. I mean, many of you here know what Peaks Creek was like, and many of you, we lucked out a little bit with Helene, but the water can rise and it can do a lot of damage, and we need to be mindful of that. I would be open to changing the rules for the new additions to Franklin, because the town council often hears petitions for areas to join Franklin, and so I might consider more restrictive rules for newcomers. Again, balancing the interests of the property owners versus the community, and have to be a heavy community need.
I didn't mean to jump ahead, honestly. The town has ordinances already in place, and they're there to protect personal property as well as the town's infrastructure, as well as our environment. And as a town council member, I think that the responsibility is to be sure that the ordinances that we have on the books are appropriate and are keeping pace with the changes in our environment and with science. So the job of a council member, the job that we would have to do, is to be sure that the ordinances we have are the right ordinances and that they are enforced. I am not in favor in any way of relaxing any regulations regarding the Little Tennessee River. I'm committed to assuring that the floodplain is protected so that the property of most property owners is protected. Allowing any kind of infill or building in the floodplain just will not be good for our town. You can look at the Franklin Press just this week and see the pictures of Hurricane Helene, and we were lightly hit. I lived here when there used to be a good number of floods in East Franklin, and people would be in rowboats going around down there in East Franklin because that river flooded. So I am not in favor of taking one of our most valuable resources and making it so that it's a resource that causes us a lot of problems. And as far as balancing the individual rights with the community rights, I think that's a hard thing to do. Or that's been my experience, that's hard to do. But in something like a river, that when it floods, that water is going to go somewhere. And that somewhere around our community, it's definitely going to be hurting some community members and some businesses. So I'm a strong believer in keeping that river as free as it is and protecting it as much as we can. So thank you.
So in my career in public service, I've sat in a lot of rooms, a lot of public processes, and have heard over and over, why people move to this area, why they stayed in this area. And generally, in the top two, one of them is the natural beauty. Our rivers, our streams, our mountains, our forests, usually coupled with our small town lifestyle. So it's a no-brainer in terms of our economy that we would want to protect our natural resources here. But I think it goes deeper than that, especially if you were born and raised here, and this is the place that your family's been for generations. That's the inheritance that we're passing on to our great-grandchildren and their children. We want them to be able to hunt and fish and swim in the rivers and enjoy the creeks, to have clean water. It's not about right now, it's about generations from now. In terms of the floodplain ordinance, I think that's squarely a property rights issue, and I'll tell you why. Because when I started as county planner here in Macon County in 2004, I was thrown deep into the pool, so to speak, because right after I started, we had Peaks Creek and we had major flooding. And one of the things that surprised me was we had, at that time, a really active property rights group, and a lot of those members showed up at our planning board meetings demanding that their property be protected from water that had been pushed over onto their property by their neighbors through fill. And that's why that provision is in the ordinance today, because it was a violation of their property rights. They had water in places that they didn't have before. And I would say that in my mind, what you're doing by preventing fill in the floodplain is you're protecting other people's property. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'd like to just piggyback on what everybody else has said as far as, protecting the Little Tennessee River, protecting the Greenway, protecting the Cartuka Jade that runs into the Little Tennessee River, since, like Jeff has said, and many others, protecting our drinking water, and that is our drinking water. But we also have to, we have to work with our county leaders too, and make sure that the town floodplain ordinance and the county floodplain ordinance are the same. Make sure that one's not stricter than the other, and these ordinances protect people. They are essential in community safety and in enabling organizations like FEMA to come in here after a natural disaster. If Helene, thank God it missed us, but if Helene ever came in here, with these floodplain ordinances in place, which I found out this week, that allows them to come in here and assist with debris removal, with people's houses. I'm like anybody else, if you have a piece of property, you don't want to be told what to do with that piece of property. You feel like you need to be able to do you need to be able to feel like you can do what you can at your home, on your own land. But we also have to be looking out for our neighbors. We don't need to be, doing things that is going to cause your neighbor's property to slide, or doing things that's going to cause your neighbor's driveway to wash out. And I think we need to leave it alone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll get back around the horn again, starting with Mr. Bailey.
Speed round, okay. I think just to summarize, I would say if we take care of the river and continue to, as we have tried, I think it will keep taking care of us. I'm with you guys. There's a tension between those individual rights and what we need as a community. But the best way to make sure that that tension is kind of overcome and there's a play in that system is to keep that dialogue. What do we need as a community versus what do you need on your space as an individual? What is possibly more powerful than just having an open and honest conversation where we see each other. We see where a neighbor is and we see what their needs are on their land, with their home and their passions, but also see what we need all together in this place as a unit. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey?
As I said earlier, I think we all know the power of moving water. And I think most of us can remember the Peaks Creek disaster, as well as what little damage we did receive from Helene, but compared to what it could have been. And going to what Matthew said, I think we need to be mindful of what we do to our property and how it changes our property, but be mindful of what it can do to your neighbors, how it can change their lives, change their property. And I sincerely believe it should be preserved and left alone.
Yeah, I think the floodplain ordinance would be left alone. We have laws in place to take care of that. Also, who was the company that cleaned the Little Tennessee River?
Ashbrit?
Yeah, they done a good job. You can actually kayak down Cold Sage now. So,
Thank you very much, Mr. Hickman.
And for those of you that don't know me, I'm a 5th generation Maconian. And I was lucky enough, growing up, my dad took me hunting and fishing all over the county. All our rivers, all our streams are beautiful, okay? We've got to watch what we do, building houses too close to this. I rode up the Cold Sage River not too long ago, right there at Peaks Creek. I seen some people building houses real close to the river. And me and my wife discussed it. They'll hate that one day. The river will come up again. Like I said, we need to keep these ordinances in place just to protect ourselves.
Thank you very much, Mr. Captain.
I'm going to skip the issue because the other candidates seem a little unclear whether they wanted to allow more fill or allow less fill. I'm in favor of keeping things the same or keeping things safer for the flood, which usually means more stills, less fill. But the town has a lot of resources, both fiscally, environmental, and our town had a lot more in savings just a few years ago. Savings which could be used for the sewage treatment plants, savings that could be used to encourage more investment from companies or to help small businesses here in town. And we've been spending a lot of those resources, and we've been using up those resources for for, playgrounds, which are great, but, I mean, do you really need a $1.2 million playground? Especially when other areas have gotten similar sized playgrounds for a lot less money. Similar sized inclusive playgrounds. I think there's a balance that can be achieved in how we use our resources. Thank you so much.
Just quickly, no more fill, no building on the in the floodplain, and that's all she wrote.
Ditto what Ms. Selene said, and I'll take it one step further because I'm conservative on this issue, very conservative. I don't think if you build in a place that you know is dangerous, it's called the floodplain, that we spend our tax dollars to do cleanup, we spend our tax dollars to do rescue, and we put our public safety people at risk in those flood events. And then generally what we do is we use taxpayer money to subsidize redevelopment of that property. It's a cycle that goes over and over. Look at North Carolina's beaches, if you want a good example of that. If you're affected during a flood, like some of the people in Helene who were in places that weren't in a designated floodplain, I'm all for that. We should definitely do something to help those people out. But if we continue to rebuild in a place that we know is dangerous, that just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like a good use of taxpayer dollars. Thanks.
I would just like to say, people do build in some very dumb places, and but that being said, with our ordinances, it allows, people to get mortgages. There's businesses that have been around for, 50 years here in Franklin when they redesigned the flood maps. With these ordinances, that they're allowed to, they can get a mortgage and they can reinvest, and this is some different ways that we need to look at the flood ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to just say, before I ask the question, that I appreciate all of you putting yourselves out here to run for office for the town. It's a sign of optimism and a sign of confidence in our town and the changes that can come to make it even better. Okay, I'm going to ask a question that is kind of political. And I'm not sure you would have an impact on this except maybe through your influence. So this is the question. The North Carolina General Assembly is considering making all school boards and town and city councils partisan rather than nonpartisan, as our town council and county school boards are now. Our local representatives are on record as maintaining our town council and school board as nonpartisan. Where do you stand on this issue?
And we'll start with Mr. Berry.
I was fortunate enough to grow up in Franklin, and as I look out over the audience, I see some of my school teachers that I have. I am against bringing partisan politics into schools. I feel like all students should receive the best education possible. In my opinion, there is no place in the learning part of a child's upbringing that partisan bickering and arguing should be prevalent in their education. The residents of Franklin should receive the best possible services. Once again, it should not be a partisan issue. We all need water to drink. We all need a police force to protect us. And we all need a fire department to give us peace of mind. We all need to make sure that we have clean water to drink. And these are just necessities of life, and to bring partisan issues into it, I disagree with it. So I just want to be clear that I would like for it to remain nonpartisan.
Mr. Cook?
I believe in nonpartisan voting except for primaries. Is my belief that who is best suited for the job, not the party, who I vote for. A person should be judged by his character and his experience, not by his politics.
Thank you very much.
That's going to be a hard no for me. We're going to keep politics out of our community. At the end of the day, we're still a small community. No bigger. I don't want to see that when it comes to politics. I've lost friends because of politics. You know, and I'd love to just, this needs to stay nonpartisan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson.
I would love to live in an ideal world where the whole world was completely nonpartisan and we hired the best people regardless of everything and all the jobs. I don't think we live there. I've talked to a lot of school teachers that say the schools and the school boards aren't nonpartisan. I mean, the elections are, but there's clearly, partisan teachings going on in the schools. And so I think it would be a little clearer for everybody if you belong to a party having a partisan elections. One of the benefits of that is usually with partisan elections, the groups are broken out so each geographic location actually has a representative. Whereas with the nonpartisan elections, you could have the whole school board filled with people from the same street. And while they might not have an R or D or I, or I guess a U, depending on how you calculate those things, next to their name in the voting block, when they're voting, it doesn't affect what they really are. And having, a little letter by someone's name might give voters a little bit more information, or at least let them know that there might be questions they need to ask on certain issues regarding certain candidates if they knew their leaning. And but because we're not in a perfect world where people don't disagree on politics, and I'd love to live there, but we're not there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lane.
I totally agree with Senator Corbin and Representative Gillespie on this issue. I don't see any value to having partisan elections for town council, municipal government, or for the school board. The issues that we face are not political issues. I don't think that there's a partisan take on whether our drinking water is good, whether we have good sidewalks, whether we have a good police department or fire department. Those are not partisan issues. So I absolutely believe that there's not, I can't think, and I tried to think of one issue that would benefit the town of Franklin or a school board by having having input from the political parties, and I could not think of one. So my thinking on it is that we've got it good right now, and I hope that we'll stay nonpartisan. I think that's best for the people, and I think it's best for our future is to remain nonpartisan. It's hard enough to make the decisions that we make without having to add a layer of politics on top of it. So thanks.
Thank you very much.
I never thought I'd be in the situation where Nancy Scott is asking me political questions. Back in high school, she was my civics teacher. I often tell her that what I'm doing now is her fault, because she left a lot of details out of how it really works. I would just say about the partisan elections, I haven't seen a pothole that's a Democrat or Republican. I haven't seen a sewer line that cares what the letter is by your name. All of these folks here tonight who are running for office are great folks who believe in Franklin, and I really don't care what the letter is beside their name. So no on partisan elections.
Thank you.
I guess with my bad seat here, you know, I got to follow everybody and agree with them again, because we don't need partisan politics in our local or school boards. You know, we need to be looking at the integrity of the person, the character of the person, and what can they do to benefit our community. And then also, what are they going to do to benefit our kids? Are they going to be in it for new schools? Are they going to hire more teachers? Are they, you know, these are all issues that don't need a DNR. These are issues that are defined by the heart and the person, and we just don't need it. Thank you.
Well, this is awkward. I think partisan politics, it's just too easy. We do live in a complicated world, and I think that's why we need space for nuance. And a lot of these issues that we're going to be trying to address coming up here are not, you know, political issues. Like Stacy said, potholes don't really have an affiliation. They're just a problem that need to be solved. Yeah, that's my passion.
Thank you. As we get ready to go around the horn one final time, since most of you did not use a lot of time, you came right to the point, in this final 90 seconds, if you want to go beyond.
I'm sorry, we've got somebody in a white Ford Explorer out here blocking the drive. It's blocking some town employees from being able to get out of the parking lot. So if you have a white Ford Explorer back in that corner, you wouldn't mind. I apologize.
Those dreams where you're gotta take a test and you gotta run naked across campus. So anyway, as I was saying, as with your final 90 seconds, if you want to address some other point, if you want to give some sort of summa to all the thoughts that you've shared with us this evening, then please feel free. So, Mr. Berry.
I just want to be clear that partisan politics should not be in education, town council. I feel like that the Board of Education should be striving to give our students the best education possible, and the municipal governments should be providing the best services possible to the residents. There's just no place in these services for partisan politics. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Cook.
It wasn't me.
Would you like to make any other remarks on the last question?
No.
Okay. Mr. Hickton?
Once again, there's no place for partisan politics in local elections, school board or town council, any municipality. We are a small community, friends, neighbors. My 5th grade teacher, right back. You know, we all know each other. We speak to each other in the grocery store. We don't need that. We don't need that politics in the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick.
I think everyone up here can agree that regardless of party, we should work as hard as we can for every citizen within our jurisdictions, that we try to uplift and bless, you know, the children in the schools, and we raise everything. But I've been interested in politics for the last 30 years, and I've seen election after election where you see a few catchy slogans on a piece of paper and you don't really know what the people represent. And I think anything we can do to give more information into the hands of voters is a good thing. And, you know, if you could find some better way of doing that, I mean, these forms are a wonderful tool, but anything you can do to get more information into the hands of voters, I'm in favor of. Anything you can do to make sure the different groups, you know, served by town council, school board, are represented on those boards, I'm in favor of. Anything you can do to, you know, for instance, with partisan, you know, elections, you have primaries. Anything you can do to help winnow down the field so, you know, the common person doesn't have to look through 10, 20 people, you know, voting for 1 or 2 seats, I'm in favor of. And I think I'll stop right there.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lynn.
Basically, I think that we ought to be getting our input from the citizens and not from the parties. I think it's important that we have a lot of input from you, and I'm looking for ways to get that, but it's the input that we need is from the citizenry that's directly impacted and not from parties who have their own agenda. Our agenda should be your agenda.
I'll just say amen to that.
Yeah, this is it.
I mean, this is the last question?
This is it.
I don't think I have anything else to add on the partisan elections. I mean, it's a small town. You can get to know the candidates. Again, every one of these candidates are here for the right reason. The current board we have, one of the reasons we've been able to get things done on that board is because although we disagree in some minor ways, we all share the vision that we want to make Franklin the best place in the world to live. And since this is the last time I'm going to be up here, thank you for organizing this, and thank you all for coming. We often sit up here in front of a mostly empty room, and it's good to see it full tonight. And if you live in town, you should show up to the meetings. Tell us what you care about. Tell us what you want us to do. But again, thank you.
Well, I would like to just go ahead and thank everybody for coming and thank the mediators. You know, we, going back to partisan, nonpartisan, everybody up here probably shares different national politics, but we all share the same love of Franklin. The potholes, the, beautifications, the infrastructure, water, sewer, we've heard it all night from everybody, and it just needs to stay out, and just want to thank everybody and have a good night.
Well, I don't want to keep you. It was important that I showed up tonight. You guys didn't have to be here. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Forward Franklin, for putting this on. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm very grateful. Thank you guys for coming out and staying up late. I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
So as we wrap it up, I want to echo what Nancy said. The optimism that comes from seeing so many people who are so earnest and thoughtful and reflective. I'll compare it to Highlands, where all the candidates are running unopposed. You don't have to go vote in Highlands, it's already done. Down here, you have the luxury, we have the luxury of having some excellent choices. So thank everybody for coming out. Thank you to the candidates for throwing their hat in the ring and for joining us this evening. Thank you to Nancy always. And thank you to Lauren and Susanna for running the ship. So thank you all very much and good night.